guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video is going to be another character design, but it's going to be a little different. So you know how my previous videos I decided to turn seasons into queens? Well, for this video I'm going to be turning potions into humans. So rather than sticking with a theme, I decided to go more of a general idea because that way I can broaden my creativity a bit more, and I feel like whenever I feel there's something that can go towards this direction instead of that direction, then I also have that option as well, rather than feeling very restricted. So just like my queens video, this video will be separate into two parts. So in part one, I will be drawing the potion of invisibility and potion of poison into humans. So let's go ahead and get started. So starting off is the potion of invisibility. I got this potion from Baldur's Gate 3, and this potion will basically turn you invisible for a certain amount of time, or unless you decided to do something that will stop that. When I saw the design of this potion, I knew that I wanted to create a human out of it because of how beautiful it looks. It feels very elf-like. It kind of reminds me of like Lord of the Rings vibe, especially with Rivendell and then Arwen's butterfly necklace. And so that's where my inspiration comes from, and more of that elegancy, ethereal moment. And so that's how I came up with this sort of design. So instead of like basing it off like the potion of invisibility, like trying to make her invisible, I mean, I can't really draw invisibility unless I just leave a blank canvas. And so the idea I have in mind is basically a woman that's like dressing herself in like a veil and robes to basically cover herself, and rather than being like a literal invisibility, it's more so like you're blending in with the crowd and being invisible from anyone. Like you just don't want to be seen essentially, or perceived as that, where she wasn't even noticed, whether it be on purpose or on accident. And so with that in mind, that's why I came up with like sort of, it kind of reminds me like a nun type of design, which isn't really intentional, but it kind of shows the vibe that she's like basically hiding her identity, whether it be for a reason or it's just her style. Like maybe she's just very shy. And as I was like drawing her outfit and this design, I realized that there's just a lot of white, and so to me it seemed very boring to look at, to put it bluntly. And so I figured that maybe I could add some lace designs at the bottom of her sleeves, which helps just a bit, but it still was missing something, and I didn't want it to be all completely white. And so adding accessories where it's like a chain and some silver, just to like bring some sort of color. But I still wasn't very happy with it until I decided to do this idea where at the ends of her sleeves of her dress, it turns kind of like a very clear invisible fabric. And when I added that design, I immediately was like, okay, this made the design 10 times better, because one, it fits the theme of invisibility, and two, I think it just gives that design a more oomph. And so I ended up liking this a lot more. So in terms of like her personality, I imagine her being very quiet, very timid, and she tries her hardest not to be seen. And I think it's because of the lifestyle that she's living, whether she joined like a monastery or like join some sort of like a church like lifestyle. Because I imagine, like, remember those monks where they swore an oath of silence, I believe, where they're not allowed to talk, but they are allowed to write like with these chalkboards, like tiny chalkboards, and that's how you basically communicate. So with her, it's something like that, except like she can still talk, but I guess in terms of she just decides to remain silent and keep everything to herself. Now, as far as that idea goes, I wasn't sure anything further than that until I decided to start drawing the second design, which is the potion of poison. And it got me thinking, like, maybe her reasoning for joining this monastery or this lifestyle is because she's trying to run away or hide from something or someone, like a particular person. And so it's sort of like blending putting in or like creating sort of like this world building between invisible and poison, and that's where I started to like give it a bit more thought. So back with the design, I still try to add a bit more color, quote unquote colors, but I decided to add like a chain piece as a headpiece, and added like a blue gem because maybe a color would be fine just to bring some life or something like that. But I think it's a nice touch, even though it's just one color. It doesn't really like take away anything, though I feel like it might. But either way, at least a bit of color was there. And so that is the design for the potion of invisibility. After adding that little change to her sleeve of her dress, I fell in love with this design a lot. And honestly, I feel like if I were to change something, it would probably add more lace work, especially her veil or her hood, because it feels very bland. Originally, I have something in mind, but then I decided not to for whatever reason, and I think that's like my biggest mistake. And so I might just go back and try to fix that a bit more, just so that she could have something. But at the same time, it feels like it fits the theme of being invisible, where you're trying to dress yourself something very bland, so that way you're kind of blend in with the environment rather than sticking out and expose yourself to the people around her, you know. But either way, like, I still really like the idea I had going for this one. And next up is the potion of poison. So I'm gonna say this right now, I think she has to be like my favorite design of all time, because it definitely goes with my typical style of drawing women, especially when it has to be like sexy, mysterious, and very dark. Not saying that the potion of visibility design isn't my favorite. I still think it's beautiful in its own way, but this one definitely is like what I usually prefer to draw. So the idea I've had in mind with the potion of poison, originally when I went with the original idea, was witches. So I was planning on turning potions into witches, and came to her. I originally thought of her as a bog witch, because when I think of poison, I think of something like a very swampy, dark environment, and so bog witch it was. And I wasn't really too keen on the idea, because when I look at the design of this bottle, it doesn't really scream bog witch. And so I decided to ask my husband for help, because like I was clearly struggling with this design, even though this one I was like very much looking forward to. And she's honestly like, this was the reason why I decided to go more of the different route. And he told me that when he saw this potion, he immediately thought of this French term for these specific type of women called the femme fatale. And femme fatales are usually like these very sexy and seductive women who actually turns out to be rather dangerous, whether it be literally or metaphorically. And because this is based off of like the poison, that's usually like a women's weapon that they would use. And when I heard that, I immediately was hooked on that idea. And so that's basically how I came up with this design for her. So with that in mind, I imagined her to be more kind of like a black widow, where she uses her seductive charm to lure in like these rich men that she comes across, and then once she has them in her grasp, that's where she kind of strikes. Not immediately, but like she takes her time to ensure that once she really has him, then that's when she uses her techniques to get rid of him and get money out of him. And so, which then leads to her character design that I thought of, where her outfits, I imagine her wearing like these mourning dresses during like Victorian and Edwardian periods. Whenever a wife loses their husband, they would wear all black and a veil. Most of them wear veils, but then I know some of them don't, but I think it's typical for them to wear a veil. But anyways, and basically they will wear this mourning dress for like a certain amount of time. I think it was about 3 months until they start like wearing like dark purples, I think. But anyways, with that, she wears a morning dress, which is all black, but this dress is more in her style, where it's tight fitting, it's very sexy, doesn't quite seem very appropriate, considered that she also adorned herself in jewelry, which is very, again, it's not very ideal for these women to wear that many jewelry, especially when she just lost her husband. But no one really bats an eye, no one really says anything. They're just like, oh, that's just her thing. And then she also wears this hat, and on that hat there's like a veil that covers her face. And so to really fit in with that femme fatale, and then also tying in the design of the potion of poison where the topper has like this skull, I'd imagine her wearing like this skull mask. And it got me thinking, like making her do a hush pose, basically telling the viewers like, yeah, I poisoned my husbands, but don't tell anyone or I will do the same to you. But you know, so that's why I give her like this devious smile and her finger over her lips to hush them. And then that's basically the design. I mean, like, shoot, this was so much fun. I mean, it screams femme fatale to me. As far as personality goes, she definitely is the opposite of Invisible. She is very seductive, she's very alluring, and she has her way with charming men. And you can clearly tell by the way she dresses, how she shows herself with so much confidence, and she uses that as her weapon. That's how she was able to get a lot of her victims. And because poison is her weapon, she doesn't become the first suspect. Because she uses poison, the law or the police people wouldn't really detect anything that it was her doing, and that he would just die from natural causes. Which reminds me of this poison called aqua tofana, I believe, where it's named after a woman who creates this poison for women who wanted to get out of bad marriages and just not get in trouble by the law. And so that's what aqua tofana did for these women. And you can say that she's saving these women, because a lot of the cases, the wives had to deal with a lot of like physical and mental abuses from their husband, and so aqua tofana was basically doing them a favor. It's just in return you gotta keep it hush hush. So that's also where I got my inspiration from, was that specific poison. But instead it was her creating the poison and doing the crimes and getting away with it. So it's kind of like a really good, not really good, I mean, it's a serial killer. She's basically a serial killer. Like, it's pretty obvious. And so as far as like a backstory that's connected with Invisible, like, you remember how I said that the reason why Invisible is part of like this sort of lifestyle where she blends in with the crowd and not be seen? Well, it's because of her. I would say, to kind of like give a reason to it, is that Invisible actually witnessed poison do something terrible. Like maybe she witnessed her first murder or saw what she was capable of, and poison, like, she saw Invisible witnessing her crimes, and to ensure that she doesn't say anything or basically just scare the shit out of her, she basically proved to Invisible that she will hurt her in the worst way possible if words get out, because the last thing poison wants is to get caught and just ruin her lifestyle and have it end that way. And I think with Invisible being very sheepish and very timid and not as confident as Poison, she kept her word and does not say anything. So really, Invisible is the only person that knows what Poison is capable of, but because Poison instilled this fear in her, that's how Poison was able to get away with it for so long. Even though she is a serial killer, like I said, I absolutely love her design. I love how I was able to incorporate like that lace metalwork that you see in the potion bottle and make it into a necklace. Originally it was going to be like lace, but then I was like, well, it's in the bottle, it's metal, and I already made the skull like gold, so why not make it into a necklace, make it seem interesting, and also kind of brings out like she is of rich society, like she loves to adorn herself in jewelry and show off that wealth. So I was like, okay, why not? So, and it also kind of like fits in well and also still brings in that element of that potion bottle design into this character. And I know that the potion bottle, like the metal part, like the topper and the lace metalwork, it seems kind of more like a rusty silver, but I feel like this character, she seems more, clearly she lives in high society and loves the luxury she gets, so I decided to make it gold. And it gives it more color because her entire outfit is black and the only colors that are popping are green, and so I was like, I'll just add gold because it makes sense for her and it makes sense to me. So yeah. And that's how I came up with the Potion of Poison's design. I love her so much and I had a blast drawing her. And that concludes the part 1 of turning potions into humans. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I did. I really do like how I went for more of a general idea, general theme rather than sticking to one, because it helps me be more creative and not restrict myself to other options in creating these characters. Because like if there's like an object that can go with like any directions, I want to take that opportunity and just create something amazing. So this will definitely be a more common thing that I will do, especially if like I can't think of like one specific theme alone and then all I can think of is other themes. I'm just gonna stick with this, but I will still do more of like turning this into that. Like maybe I could do like turning rocks into magic girls. I don't know. That could be an idea, honestly. But thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for part 2, which will be 2 more potions, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye bye.